And some people even saw this gathering of all 5 living former presidents for hurricane relief this past weekend as a reminder that the polite political discourse of the past is over. Dr. Jeff Engel, director of the Center for Presidential History at SMU. Are these who stood up this week, the 2 current senators and the former president last week, the first or perhaps the last to stand up on the train track and defy the Trump train?
That's a great question. You know, I think at this point they're thinking it's going to be the first, and I think in many ways the president anticipates it's going to be the first. Clearly, what we're starting to see is a real rift in the Republican Party. I think we can go so far as to say a civil war in the Republican Party between establishment and the people who support the president. So that is going to exacerbate people coming out and choosing sides.
Do you get the sense that at this point, and we don't know where it's going to go, at this point, is the Republican Party the party of Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, or the party of John McCain, George W. Bush, Corker, and Flake?
I think honestly going forward, I think it's the party of Donald Trump. And I think the reason is that the president, of course, has a lot of power. They have a lot of good media. They have a lot of money to put behind their Republican primary candidates to try to essentially get their own people in. I mean, Bannon has suggested that they're going to run insurgent candidates in every Republican primary except against Ted Cruz. And that gives the president a lot of power. There might be some disruption in 2018, but for 2020, it really puts him in the driver's seat.
What does the history, you're the historian, what does history tell you about what happens when the party in power, they've got the House, they've got the Senate, they've got the White House, the Republican Party, but they're divided? What happens? Or is this unprecedented?
No, this part of the Trump presidency is not unprecedented. We've actually seen the last 4 presidents who faced primary challengers when they were running for renomination lost. So essentially, when you have a divided party, you see that you essentially divide the way that people want to support their own candidate. And we really can go back to 1912, to be honest, 100 years ago or more, to see when the Republican Party split between Taft and Roosevelt. That allowed the Democrats to win. The only way that Democrat won, Woodrow Wilson, in 1912 and then again in 16, was because of a rift in the Republican Party. So what they're really doing is opening up a fissure that could allow their opponent to sneak in.
In all of these cases, Flake, Corker, and Tom Coburn, who happens to be a former senator from Oklahoma, they're pretty conservative. They're very conservative.
Well, and that's really what's fascinating, is that they're not arguing against the president on any policy level or even on any ideological level. Their complaints about this president that we've seen in the last week are about his tone or about his actions.
Well, here's what a quote Coburn from Oklahoma said, and again, very conservative. We have a leader who has a personality disorder, but he's done what he told people he would do, and they're not going to stand up for him, neither voters nor members of Congress.
Well, and so this is really the key question that senators are going to have to ask themselves. Senators in particular, who of course the Constitution gives them the right and the responsibility to essentially be a check against presidential power. They might ask themselves, if we can get the agenda through without the anxiety of a president who perhaps has a difficult relationship with the truth, as another senator said, that might be a time to essentially try to push him out in some unprecedented way.
All right. Dr. Engel, by the way, has a new book coming out in less than a couple of weeks, When the World Seemed New. George H.W. Bush, a remarkable man you've spent a lot of time with, and the end of the Cold War. We're going to look forward to talking with you more about that and more about him as well.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for having me.